This week in the business of tech, we'll be discussing the G7 nations agreeing on a risk-based AI regulation and ChatGPT's return to Italy, along with the significant increase in managed services contract value, according to a new IDC report. We'll delve into the major $100 million 15-way acquisition that has created a national Canadian platform of managed services. We analyze the evolving world of remote work, looking at the Docusign report that highlights remote work benefits, but also the company's decision to reinstate in-office requirements for hybrid employees. We'll be able to share some new insights from researchers on the traits of successful Zoom conversationalists and debunk myths about video chat. Or how about new service leadership data that reveals a staggering 31% of MSPs surveyed lost money in Q1 2023. Meanwhile, the White House is making waves by investing $140 million into AI development and fostering industry collaboration. Finally, we'll cover the latest updates from Google, Apple, Twitter, and Microsoft, including new features and policy changes. All these stories and more. Hit those like, subscribe, and the notification button and help us pay the bills. And here are this week's stories. Let's cut the FUD. Don't let anyone scare you from selling VoIP because compliance is hard. With their newest managed compliance service, OITVOIP removes compliance headaches from the picture while you retain control of your client relationships. Get started selling faster than ever. Visit oit.co/MSP Radio to learn more today. The group of 7 nations agreed over the weekend to use a risk-based regulation approach for AI. Such regulation should also, quote, preserve an open and enabling environment for developing AI technologies and be based on democratic values. Meanwhile, the EU has an early agreement on its AI copyright rules. Companies deploying generative AI tools, such as ChatGPT, must disclose any copyrighted material used to develop their systems. Under the proposals, AI tools will be classified according to their perceived risk level: minimal to limited, high, and unacceptable. Areas of concern could include biometric surveillance, spreading misinformation, or discriminatory language. While high-risk tools will not be banned, those using them must be highly transparent in their operations. And ChatGPT is back in Italy after a brief ban. OpenAI said it, quote, had addressed or clarified, close quote, the issues the Italian Data Protection Authority raised in late March. OpenAI set up a new form that EU users can use to submit to remove personal data under Europe's General Data Protection Regulation. It also says that a new tool will verify users' ages upon sign-up in Italy. It published a Help Center article outlining how OpenAI and ChatGPT collect personal information, including information about contacting its GDPR-mandated data protection officer. And out of the earnings calls last week, Amazon said it would be shifting its spending from its retail business to its Amazon Web Services division, in part to power the type of artificial intelligence behind ChatGPT-type bots. That from the information. Also of note, CEO Andy Jassy did address the appearance that Alexa was further behind, citing that the company is working on a larger language model, although no timeline was discussed. Speaking of ChatGPT, the company has added the ability to switch off chat history when using the chatbot and won't use those conversations to train its models. Additionally, the Wall Street Journal profiles some pilot programs at 3 health systems looking to see if the AI model can assist doctors with patient responses. And according to a Forbes Advisor survey of more than 2,000 Americans in April, 77% were concerned AI would cause job loss within the next 12 months, with 44% stating they were very concerned and 33% somewhat concerned. Similarly, 75% of respondents are concerned about AI-induced misinformation, even as 65% said they plan to use ChatGPT. and instead of traditional search engines like Google when searching online for information. Why do we care? Copyright and privacy laws will be critical in using AI-generated content. Who owns the data? How will it be used? The balance providers are looking to strike right now is helping customers experiment with the uses of the tools, while still ensuring that the business is protected. It's a balancing act. Then again, you're not paid if it's easy. According to an IDC report released Thursday, the average managed services contract value increased more than 22% year over year in 2022, a sign of ongoing enterprise technology investment in this category. The analyst firm Services Contract Database showed that more than 1,700 managed services deals were signed in 2022, reaching $125 billion in contract value. However, according to the company, the number of deals contracted from last year. Despite economic concerns, IT spending in this category is expected to continue to grow this year, with more than 2,300 managed services deals worth about $122 billion coming up for renewal. And while we're considering service providers, the 2023 ISG Provider Lens Microsoft Cloud Ecosystem Report for the US finds that many enterprises invested heavily in platforms like Microsoft 365, Power Platform, and the Azure Hyperscale Cloud to keep their businesses running during the pandemic when work and commerce moved largely online. Why do we care? The number of deals is less significant than the contract value, and contract values continue increasing. 22% is pretty healthy. I wouldn't expect to see 40, 50, or 60% growth here, and it outpaces some of the 10 to 15% growth numbers I've seen. It's a bit of confidence to start the week. And note, the ISG report focuses above the typical managed services provider level on where enterprise value is in that productivity layer. Well, how's this for a headline? A 15-way MSP acquisition deal. Quoting from the press release that was issued today. Alfar Capital and Walter Capital Partners have completed the acquisition of MSP Corp, a renowned Canadian managed services provider group, in a transaction of over $100 million. After the acquisition, MSP Corp will merge with Group Access, a leading managed service provider of technology and cybersecurity solutions. The combined entity, called MSP Corp, creates a national Canadian platform of managed services poised to lead the industry in digital transformation, cloud computing, and cybersecurity solutions. So, translating this, these two equity groups bought MSP Corp, which has 10 MSPs in it, and you might remember I've interviewed them on the show. Then, those groups bought two more MSPs and finally smashed the whole thing together to create one single MSP. The companies are all across Canada, and the new company will have over 400 employees. So, I asked and had Ravi Ramharik back on the show. And I asked, why do it this way?
The reason for the methodology here is that we did amalgamate legally, right? So from a legal perspective, we are now one company with a bunch of different front trade names that we operate under. The logic behind the way we did it is mostly tax related, to be quite frank. And just from a tax perspective, this made the most sense. When you have so many different asset values, like at fair market, this was the most structure that made the most sense, which was MSP Corp exiting, and then everybody reinvesting, and then doing the merger. And it made a very efficient tax structure, at least by Canadian laws. So I wouldn't say there was much planning behind it, except for the tax guys at the end of the day were like, this is the best way to do this.
There's usually more to a thesis than this. So I asked about part of the reasoning around hiring.
So bringing on Group XA is just one more MSP in our group. And we managed to get a CEO as well, which to me was, me and Nate talk about this all the time, was a big lacking point for us. Because although I'm sure I'm good at M&A, and sure I can fix computers and servers and talk to the bank, I'm not leadership. I'm not trained. I haven't been in leadership roles in that large capacity before. Bringing on Habib, who's not only built Group XA from scratch, but has understands, national sales, national account management, integration, really brings the level of maturity to the company.
Finally, I had to know, what does success look like a year from now?
We have one unified payroll system, one unified HRIS system, and a unified vendor management platform. To me, 6 months from now, we hit all those targets, which is what we're on target for. We did a great job. I mean, now from a visual point of view, to most people, you are one company and you just have different divisions and they service different things. But at the end of the day, they all kind of do the same thing with a bit slight delivery based on regionality, right? I think that's a big win from my point of view. Things might change, obviously, in the next 6 months. But as of right now, I think that's the delivery message we give out to everybody.
Why do we care? It's essential to consider the reasons for a unique deal like this, and that's why I asked. Between 70 and 90% of acquisitions fail, and they generally fail because the people problem just integrating two companies. Just two. This one is 15 ways. Now, we can assume the single MSP core was already integrated. We're still dealing with a 5-way integration. That's, a lot. Think about it. Every one of those interactions between organizations is a relationship to manage. More than raw dollars, the two reasons for this deal appear to be leadership and tax. That's a critical insight. In the larger discussion with Ravi, I noted that this is not the end, but the beginning. The entrepreneurs involved have had their exit, and that's to be celebrated. But now the work begins. We'll see if the gamble pays off for them. This research is just catnip for me. Researchers on behalf of the coaching platform BetterUp looked into successful Zoom usage, and they built a database of how people interact on Zoom and had conversations rated, looking for what worked. The highest rated conversationalists had a few things in common. They spoke generally 3% faster, about 6 additional words per minute. They varied their volume, possibly because they were adjusting to the room. They nodded and shook their heads more often, signaling appropriate responses and attentiveness. They mixed it up, but not too much. They knew how to stay on topic, and they introduced more subject changes. Finally, they were more intense, exhibiting more emotion. And the things they didn't find? There's no evidence that people dislike Zoom, and that chatting on Zoom does make people happy, even. And how about video chat making it hard for people to have smooth conversations? Turns out that's not true either. Why do we care? There's a difference between technology working and technology being effective. Which offer do you think customers value more? Having Zoom be available, or teaching leaders how to effectively deliver messaging via the medium? Many successful providers couple training offerings with their services offerings. What I find most notable here is that the ones who lean into success do so moving beyond just reaching what a product does. And research like this is the input to developing those courses. I wanted to pick up a couple of threads from RSA from last week. Axios said the thing out loud, quote, "Ransomware is a forever problem now." I wanted to quote 2 sentences from their piece, focusing on a shift to the problem being endemic. Quote, "Conversations about ransomware at RSA have shifted from viewing it as an easily squashed nuisance to seeing it as a persistent threat." And, quote, "Ransomware now is treated like any other crime that's not expected to easily be solved or to vanish after a couple of key arrests," experts told Axios. The Biden administration had several representatives out at RSA last week, and not just from CISA. The State Department's ambassador at large, as well as the Office of the National Cyber Director, were on site. And from the show, the word is that the implementation plan for the National Cyber Strategy could be available by early summer, per the acting National Cyber Director, Kemba Walden, during a roundtable discussion at the RSA conference. Quote, "When this implementation plan is published, it's not going to be sexy," Walden joked. "It's really going to be about who's accountable for what, who's responsible for what in the policy-making process." Why do we care? Endemic isn't reduced, although I would call the spam problem endemic, and that has been reduced. Reducing the financial incentives continues to be my sense of value here. The US government is doing its part to make that happen. It's up to the private sector to do its part, which is why we care. That's the work of this audience. And there does appear to be a solid partner in the US government in fighting back. IBM's CEO has predicted the AI impact. He's citing a potential 30% impact on the company's own back office. Other leaders have not been as explicit about using AI to cut jobs. Geoffrey Hinton, the machine learning pioneer, sometimes called the godfather of AI, says he left Google to speak freely about the dangers of rushing AI products. His immediate concern is that the internet will be flooded with false text. The average person will not be able to know what is true anymore. He also worries that AI technologies will, in time, upend the job market. And those executives are looking. More than 2/3 of executives say the benefits of implementing generative AI outweigh the potential risks, according to a Gartner report published Wednesday. 7 in 10 executives say their companies are investigating or exploring generative AI, while 19% have advanced pilots or are in production. The firm surveyed over 2,500 executives during a webinar series in March and April. While the cost-cutting and efficiency upsides of generative AI have made headlines, the top driver for enterprise adoption is customer experience, according to 38% of respondents. Just 17% are deploying the technology focused on cost optimization. And a first victim of ChatGPT hype, Chegg, the online education firm, who said on Monday that the chatbot was hurting its new customer growth rate and saw a 48% stock dip. ChatGPT-like conversations may be coming to Alexa. In a leaked document seen by Insider, Amazon is planning a reboot, with the goal of making Alexa smarter, saying users should feel like Alexa is thinking versus fetching from a database. This will be done with a large, homegrown language model. Skill with ChatGPT is in serious demand. Top global tech skill for businesses in the first quarter of 2023 was ChatGPT, which experienced a 4,419% increase in global topic consumptions from the fourth quarter of 2022. Other AI-focused skills, such as Azure Machine Learning at 281% and AI art generation at 239%, also significantly increased, landing them in the top 10 global tech skills. This from Udemy's Global Workplace Learning Index. And in a surprising business use case, Zillow's integration via a plugin with ChatGPT was announced. Those using the plugin can tell ChatGPT what kind of property they want to purchase or rent, sharing criteria like location, price, and bedroom count. ChatGPT will dive into Zillow's database and spit out some options for you. Doctors, too, should be considering the impact. 45% of ChatGPT responses to patients graded as empathetic or very empathetic, according to a study from the journal JAMA Internal Medicine, the Wall Street Journal reported. Just 4.6% of respondents posted to r/AskDocs on Reddit by actual physicians received the same grades. And in scary use cases, Palantir is launching the Palantir Artificial Intelligence Platform, software meant to run large language models and alternatives on private networks. In the pitch video, the operator uses a ChatGPT-style chatbot to order drone reconnaissance, generate several plans of attack, and organize the jamming of enemy communications. Why do we care? One of my Patreon supporters commented on how worrying Hinton's comments were. I get that concern, although observe that these are the people who created the technology, and I'm looking for answers more than concerns. The genie is out of the bottle. The internet will be filled with false text at a grander scale than we see now. And as IBM CEO notes, we're in for a disruption. Solutions will go further than concerns. And I see this as an opportunity. Those pilot projects are in flight now. If your customers aren't considering it, they're already behind. I spotted some data from the Channel Partners Conference this week, but let's quote Channel Futures. Peter Kujawa, Vice President of Service Leadership, is amazed by the amount of MSPs he benchmarks in companies' quarterly reports that lose money. In the first quarter, 31% of MSPs he surveyed lost money. That was actually better than the 36% that reported losses in the previous quarter. Profitability among the top quartile of MSPs he surveys is about 24%. Why do we care? Nearly a third of companies in this space are losing money. I've been citing a quarter of that for a long time, so time to update my numbers. Jawa goes on to talk about how much opportunity there is, and yet 1 in 3 is not money. Enough has happened already to do another AI roundup. First, quoting from The Verge. The White House announced more funding and policy guidance for developing responsible artificial intelligence ahead of a Biden administration meeting with top industry executives. The actions include a $140 million investment from the National Science Foundation to launch 7 new national AI research institutes, increasing the total number of AI-dedicated facilities to 25 nationwide. Google, Microsoft, NVIDIA, OpenAI, and other companies have also agreed to allow their language models to be publicly evaluated during this year's DEF CON. The Office of Management and Budget also said it would publish draft rules this summer for how the federal government should use AI technology. And the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy Group said it would request information from the public regarding how such tools are used to surveil, monitor, evaluate, and manage workers. The FTC is looking for ways that rapidly advancing AI could be used to violate antitrust and consumer protection laws that it's charged with enforcing. This from an op-ed in the New York Times this week. Quote, although these tools are novel, they are not exempt from existing rules, and the FTC will vigorously enforce the laws we are charged with administering, even in this new market. Microsoft upgraded its Bing chatbot. Additions include image and video answers, restaurant bookings, chat history, and smarter Microsoft Edge integration. These new features also coincide with Microsoft making Bing Chat available for anyone to try, moving from private to public preview. And plugins are coming soon. They've added actions, completing tasks without going back and forth between sites. Why do we care? This weekend's bonus episode dives more into the value providers can offer around AI, so I'll leave that discussion to the weekend. Instead, what I want to consider today is how there are existing frameworks that will apply. The FTC is correct. While new, existing rules do apply. Docusign released a report on Wednesday that highlights the benefits of remote work. The report found that about 2/3 of executives believe remote work and increased digitalization have helped diversify the workforce, broaden the talent pools for companies, and expanding their DEI initiatives. More than 3/4 of the business executives polled agree that the flexibility to work at any time from any location has boosted productivity. At the same time, Docusign is forcing employees back to the office. Employees designated as hybrid have been asked to come into the office at least twice weekly, based on individual job functions and locations. Now, why do we care? Just because the data gives guidance doesn't mean people will follow it. People are messy. I'll report on the data because I'm data-driven, and I highlight how I think there's an opportunity here. That said, there'll be others that go in another direction. It's unclear why Docusign is moving this way. We know it's intentional to ignore their own data. Let's get in a round of product announcements. Google has added Passkeys support to Google accounts, so get that set up and do so for your clients. Apple and Google are teaming up for a proposed industry specification to combat the safety risks of AirTags and other Bluetooth-enabled tracking devices. The company announced Tuesday that the new standard requires the implementation of, quote, unauthorized tracking detection and alerts across Android and iOS devices. Twitter is backtracking, again, on that change to API support. Quote, verified government or publicly owned services who tweet weather alerts, transport updates, and emergency notifications, quote, can continue to use the API free of charge. New York's MTA had abandoned Twitter alerts entirely and is now reconsidering. And I didn't want to miss this last one. Microsoft said that they are done with Windows 10 updates, making 2022 H2 the final version. And they're closing down their Microsoft-branded mice, keyboards, and webcams. Instead, Microsoft is now focusing on its Surface-branded PC accessories. Why do we care? Roll out those passkeys as quickly as you can. Thanks for watching this week in the Business of Tech. If you like this video, you can let me know with a like of the video, and even more valuable, hitting the subscription button. My content is all free, and I use metrics like subscriptions to pay the bills, so it has real value. The content here is produced under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you're interested in more content like this, you can get access to content early via our Patreon at patreon.com/MSP Radio. It's our give what you want model, where you set the value of what you think the content is worth. If you like this show, you can catch it daily as the 5-minute news and commentary podcast, The Business of Tech, available on all your favorite podcatchers with links at businessof.tech. Just hit that big blue subscribe button. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen, and I really value the interaction. If you want to say something in the comments, I do respond and watch all of them, and I look forward to talking to you next time.